Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, and today is week 4 of Monster Month. However, I cannot go through a whole month without a video on one of the deities of Galorian, now can I? Luckily we have a perfect monster-themed deity to remain tangentially on topic with. No, not Loremaster, we did her this summer. No, not Rovagaki. It's Ugathoa. Ugathoa, the Pallid Princess, the first creature to become undead. And while I try to avoid just having this month be about undead because of the Book of the Dead coming out this year, it's still the most thematic edition for this year. Either way, let's start the party. But first, let us see where you can dig up the dirt on Ugathoa yourself. First, the original arrangements were set in Gods and Magic for both editions. Then rumors were laid to rest with the 5th book of the Charon Crown Adventure Path, titled Ashes at Dawn. A second was dug in the book Inner Gods. Face of Corruption laid a nice bouquet on the collection, and her tomb was mapped out well in Planar Adventures. Finally, a few more bones are thrown with side tangents from the Divine Anthology, various bestiaries, and one edition from the Book of the Damned. Also Book of the Dead, but since that came out this year, it's less of a priority for this episode. There was little known about Ugathoa when she was alive. We do know she was in a position where she lived in the lap of luxury, spending all her time in hedonistic bliss, eating, sleeping, sexing, living her life to her fullest. And then, she died. She, like all do, found herself standing in front of Pharasma to be judged. However, she refused. Somehow she managed to escape and return to the mortal world. And therefore she became the first undead, the first of many to deny death to continue on with the pleasures of life. Of course, her senses dulled in undeath, she had to find even more extreme methods to stimulate herself. Most of the time, whenever Ugathoa takes on an appearance, it is as a beautiful woman with long dark hair and pale skin, the ethnicity represented usually Vorician. She appears completely naked, allowing those in witness to see everything. And by everything, I mean how the body slowly degrades as it continues on down, until beneath the hanging intestines is nothing but blood-stained bones. Now, you should still be fine if you prefer the top, however. Additionally, sometimes she takes the form of unique undead creatures known as the Daughters of Ugathoa, happily taking on the form she grants her favorites. Which this would be the perfect time to talk about what they are, would it not? Then let's jump into our first side tangent, the part of the show where we finally get to talk about more monsters. Daughters of Ugathoa were once mortals who were the most devoted of priestesses to the Pallid Princess. While they still resemble the women they once were, they now have twisted bodies, moved by fleshy tentacles, with one arm transformed into a giant claw, and covered in mouths. Outside of that, no two are alike, each one a unique monster under their mother. They are the most leading position in her church, and work to create diseases, artifacts, zombie hordes, and the like, all in their mother's name. Ugathoa has always been a seeker of sensations and pleasures, but the necrotic flesh has dulled that, along with any sense of morality she had left. And so she has driven into the deeper and deeper depths of depravity. She has eaten the brains of a baby, tore the heart out of the last member of a now extinct species, and marked a handsome prince with leprosy just to see the patterns on their flesh. Book of the Dead mentions how all undead have a craving they need to stay sane in their eternium of life, and that all comes from Ugathoa, instilling just a fraction of a hedonism in all her undead children. There are a few non-evil worshippers of Ugathoa who are in it for the parties, and gorging themselves till they cannot anymore. But even these groups do not last long before someone's appetite becomes too large. More often than not, you get the dark ones. The most prominent are, of course, the Undead, or the makers of Undead, who have Ugathoa to thank for their station. This includes the faith being the majority religion in the nation of Geb. We have the gluttonous, who want as much food, wine, and sex as possible in increasingly twisted ways. We have those who come down with plague or other diseases, who would rather taint their souls than go through the physical torture. Ugathoa encourages marriage for life, and for death, or at least with the dead spouse as a servant. You know there has to be some black widows who collect ex-husbands, especially since in the church divorce is frowned upon, but murder is not. And of course she encourages adoption. After all, after killing the parents, the child can be raised as a skilled necromancer of patience. In the church, priests are one thing. Priests with the power to create undead, referred to as necrolords, are an entirely different thing. And the daughter of Ugathoa are even higher on the food chain. Either way, they work to protect undead, give the undead in the region a location they can exist, and a steady stream of supplies, to minimize the chance of them being noticed. They also spread knowledge untraceable on how to treat the undead, allowing one to care for them beyond just having them as servants, as well as helping to care for their unique needs. Since they cannot reveal their positions in most places, they instead take day jobs which give them access to dead bodies, like morticians or fake priests of other religions. And as we speak on the goddess of undead, it's just right to have a side tangent covering another type of undead. Our second, this time, the Mohrg. Mohrgs are undead who form from those who killed countless others during their lifetimes, and so continue to try to do so in death. They appear as skeletons with one addition: entrails, which they can move as tentacles, and as tongue. Even before fighting, you have a chance of having nightmares upon you. They prefer to hunt their isolated targets one by one, but they have various skills which make them deadly combatants, like the fact their entrails can paralyze a foe, or that those killed can come back as zombies. One can easily cause a party wipe if you're not careful around them. Back to Ugathoa, her temples are built like feast halls, ready for the next banquet to be served. Because of how secretive her worship needs to be, these temples are often built in graveyards, and are often tended by ghouls. With the table as an altar, and often a week on the menu, followers are guaranteed their fill. There are not many shrines to Ugathoa. After all, her worshippers need the extravagant. To hold back for any reason is simply a waste. Ugathoa's divine realm is known as Bloodrot, a city within Abaddon. It was not always so, however. Once upon a time, Ugathoa made her home in the material realm, but here she was vulnerable. While searching for a place to call her own, she was approached by an unlikely ally, Charon, Horseman of Death. He offered the deity a place within Abaddon, without any strings attached. So that is the explanation of her faith's current living arrangements, but it does not explain Charon. After all, as a daemon sworn to bring an end to all things, why build a city where undeath may reign? However, Ugathoa, for now, is taking it one day at a time, just enjoying the pleasure of it all. Now let's dig deeper into Ugathoa's worship. I already used that one. Anyway, let's start with where Ugathoa is worshipped. First Geb, no explanation needed, and the Darklands, Osirian, and Ustalov, all speak for themselves why the Queen of Undeath would be worshipped there. Varisian is a harder pill to swallow, but considering that where her origin is thought to be, it fits. Every day is a celebration, so there are no mere holidays, though new moons and the passing of the undead planet Eox get special recognition. Finally, her holy book is Serving Your Hunger. Written by her first anti-paladin, this book is both a cookbook for all humanoids, as well as a manual to transition to various kinds of undeath. Which brings us to a third side tangent, Aneta, Divine Fighting Style. In places where Ugathoa's religion has a significant presence, especially in the nation of Geb, the book Pallid Cravings can be found. This book is made from leathered skin, tattooed while still alive before being removed, piece by piece. It teaches the style known as Ugathoa's Hunger, which gives her worshippers hundreds of ways to play with the flesh of their opponents in battle. This allows a scythe user to feast on the life essence of their opponents, and with enough practice, one can also use this to increase the diseases within their opponent's body, increasing their agony to new heights. And bringing us to all our ends, we have the part dealing with her allies and other gods. First, her Deity allies. We start with Vajon, a former Lenorm king turned ghast after facing countless tragedies. Now he's just as much a barbarian as he was in life, except with a new way to dispose of his enemies. Ulex is a vampire who is turned before his 20th year. He turns into shadows instead of smoke, and hates any form of light. Borish Thogdusks is a devourer pale enough to see the bones and tissues under the skin. Made unique by having a few more tricks like contagion and gaseous form up her sleeve, but outside of that, mostly a standard devourer. And finally is Ugathoa's herald, Mother's Maw, a giant skull surrounded by flies. It is a war machine, following all of Ugathoa's orders without question, and with the power to create more undead. However, it is also a font of knowledge on sensations, and is willing to talk for hours about the best smells, tastes, sounds, etc. In terms of other gods, Ugathoa and Pharasma, you probably do not want to even consider mentioning them anywhere near each other. The goddess Senre is also quick to assume that undead need to be healed instead to be happy, so she is not invited to the parties. She and Callistria get along well for actually having pretty similar faiths, minus the undeath and disease part. And she loves Abadar cities and how easily they spread infections. As a proud hedonist, she despises Iwari and his asceticism. And then we have two pairs of interests. The first, the demon lords Kabiri and Zora, who fight with Ugathoa over some of their followers, for obvious reasons. And then we have Xiphus and Naderi. Xiphus is a strong ally of the faith, and they share the same divine realm. Naderi is not there yet, but the other two Deathbringers are willing to offer the demigoddess of tragedy and suicide a place to call home, with all she needs to do being to fall. That is it for Ugathoa, but we have one more side tangent left. Let's use this opportunity to look at another demi-deity of death. Kabiri would be the perfect pick, but we are getting more information on him. I guess it was last week now, was it not? So instead, let's look at another favorite, Orcus. And yes, this is hinted to be the same demon lord Orcus from Dungeons & Dragons, which is part of the reason why he has less of a presence on Golarion than other worlds. That and Ugathoa, Kabiri, and Zora take away many of his would-be followers. Either way, Orcus and his faithful believe in undeath, but more strongly in intentional undeath. Vampirism is a simple disease, and accidentally coming back as a ghost or spirit, definitely what modern people would consider mid. Liches who spend their entire lifetime working to become a lich, that is what all should strive to be. Zombies and skeletons, they are often made intentionally, and so are considered higher forms than ghosts. His realm is Ugathoa, which in and of itself is an entire world. A world filled with undeath, but varied enough in environments that you would swear it was a zombie apocalypse on Golarion. And that is this week's video. Still a bit more of Ugathoa, but that is something which needs to wait until we get more Starfighter-wise. As for now, we have one more week of Monsters Month creeping up on us. And it's going to be Halloween too. So let's get into the spirit of things, shall we?